Welcome to eAssist Growing Your Dental Business podcast. Tune in as the experts in dental business share tips and tools to grow your practice. To learn more, visit dentalbilling.com. Please welcome our next guest.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Growing Your Dental Business podcast. I am your host, Jacquelyn Hurley. In today's episode, we are going to talk directly to the heart about one of the biggest challenges that private practice owners face, and that is finding and keeping the right associate. If you've ever hired an associate and thought, this is harder than I expected, you're not alone. And today we welcome Bryton Nield, the CEO and co-founder of Dentist Partners Pros, and his organization has some stats that show that 75% of hiring associates fail. Now, that's a staggering number. And today we're going to unpack why that happens and, more importantly, how to fix it. Dentist Partners Pros is a recruiting firm that is changing the way dental practices hire and retain associate doctors. In just 3 years, Bryton and his co-founder, dental consulting veteran Bob Spiel, who is a good friend of mine, have built a company that's helping practice owners finally solve the associate hiring puzzle. And their innovative hiring and onboarding systems are enabling private practices to achieve a whole new level of success, stability, and synergy. So I'm going to just tell them a little bit more about you, Bryton. You've been featured on many of our favorite dental podcasts. So we're excited to have you here today. You've built 2 startups and you've turned them into 7-figure businesses. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be a part of those teams. So in my previous life, yeah, that's where I came from. But now it's all Dentist Partner Pros. This is my whole life. This is all I do.
So now you are laser focused on what you're working on now to build high-performing and low-stress teams that last.
Yes.
Good. So I just want our listeners to know that if they're a practice owner who's ever thought, I just want to find the right person who will stay and contribute to my vision, this episode's for you. So let's get going, Bryton. I wanted to start out with a big question. How does a practice know if they are truly ready to hire an associate? I guess that's the first question.
Yeah, it's a great question too, because Jacquelyn, you've been in dentistry for a long time. And sometimes practice owners have the tendency to think if I just throw more money at something, it's going to solve the problem. And that's just not how it works, right? And so that tends to happen when we have a practice owner who's maybe feeling a little overwhelmed, a little burnt out or whatever. And they think, if I just had another doctor in here, man, my life would be better. Okay. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. Having those burdens, that stress, and just throwing another doctor in there isn't going to necessarily solve the problems. And so I think the question is why, when or how do I know if I should bring on another doctor? Because there's some specific things that we can dive into. So there's really 2 sides of it from our perspective. First is the doctor owner mindset and emotional state. And then the second part is the practice actually ready? Do they have the patient flow? All those things. Okay, so I'd say let's dive into both of those if you want to.
Okay.
First one is the doctor owner mindset. I've talked to hundreds of practice owners over the last few years, and I've learned very quickly that there's some practice owners who play well with others. There's those that don't, to put it politely, right? And
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and if they're listening to it, you probably know if you're not a play well with others kind of person, right? Yeah. And that's okay, totally fine. But when you bring on another doctor, especially if you're going from 1 doctor to 2 doctors, it's a big shift. Okay, it's almost like a marriage at times. You're bringing in another provider. They're going to be doing dentistry in your ops, using your equipment with your team on your patients. It's a big thing. Okay. And so that's why I say it's like a marriage, because we're going to be forming this new relationship and they're going to bring all their stuff with them. And if we're not willing as a business owner, as a practice owner, to support them, to sacrifice for them, to try to help put them first, may not be in that mental, emotional state to actually see success bringing on another doctor. Okay.
When you look at it as a marriage, boy, that really brings it home, right? Everyone understands that. I mean, well, not everyone probably, but I think most people can understand just that relationship in general.
Totally. And marriages aren't easy, and as new associateships aren't easy either. As the industry has shown, 75% of them fail, and that most of those happen within the first year. And that's not just a us thing, like that's a dental post thing, that's a dental economics thing. It's been reported lots of times. And so if you can check the boxes emotionally, mentally, and say, yeah, like I would really enjoy working with another doctor. I would probably enjoy the collaboration. I would enjoy supporting them. I would enjoy potentially mentoring or coaching them. That's a great first box to check that you might be ready to bring on an associate. The second box that you really need to check is to actually make sure your practice is ready, that it could properly facilitate and bring someone in to be successful. And just because we feel busy doesn't mean we actually are busy, especially if we don't have like great systems or processes in place or the finances to support it. Okay. So there's like 4 big categories we like to look at when it comes to practice readiness, is what we call it. And how I like to describe it is that you have kind of a practice within a practice, meaning like we've got just enough overflow, just enough busyness, just enough space that if we brought in another doctor, we could kind of build a second practice within our own practice. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah.
So there's like the 4 components are: first, patient load. Patient load, if you want to get nitty gritty, you can talk about new patients. How many like new patients are we bringing in on average per month? And then how many total active patients have we brought into the practice within? Active patients, it can be someone that's received treatment within the last 18 months. Okay, that's kind of like rule in the industry, right? And so when you're looking at those numbers, you want to be really looking, okay, do we have enough new patients to go around, and we have enough total active patients to go around? If you have that, then you're probably going to go into the second category, which is overall busyness. And that can be really looked through total production. And then how far out are we booked? Are we booked out 2 weeks? Are we booked out 4 weeks? Are we booked out 6, 8? Are we booked out 3 months? Yeah. I've talked to a few practice owners recently who are booked out 12 months.
Wow.
12 months. And that's an amazing problem to have until those patients aren't getting served for 12 months. And their problems are only growing for that over that course of time, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so yeah, if you have enough patient load and then your busyness, you're scheduled out far enough, you've done enough production. The next one is, do you have enough space? Operatories. Could you actually have another doctor in the space?
Yeah.
If it's a tiny little niche practice and you only have like 3 ops, I don't know how you're going to do it. Okay. But if you have a minimum of 5, you can get creative with the schedule. And if you've got more than that, you're probably okay. You could probably entertain 2 doctors, or the ability to shift schedules around or things like that. And then the last one, after you've done patient load, busyness, ops, or capacity, the last one is just purely the finances side. Can you simply afford to pay a doctor? And that's going to be your collections. And then the big number there is going to be your overhead rate. Most GP practices these days, their overhead's getting a little squeezed because of all the different things that are affecting practice ownership right now. Right. But if you can be 70% or below in overhead, then you probably have enough room that you could bring on an associate. The other parts will influence that. If your practice growing, you have patients to go around. Could you see an increase in that if you brought in another doctor? So those are the 4 components on top of the 5th, if you will, the doctor owner mindset, that if you really consider bringing on an associate, you should check all those boxes to make sure that like it's a wise choice to do it. Because that failure rate, I can't tell you how many associates we interview who jumped into practices who didn't have any work to do. They didn't have enough patients to go around. And because of that, they're like, well, what am I even doing here? I'm going to go find a practice that can get me busy. And so, yeah, those are some of the things I would look at if you're considering bringing on an associate.
Well, I love it. So there's a lot involved there. I mean, you really have to look at all your checks and balances and double check that you are ready for this. Out of all of those things, is one of them kind of across the board, anything that you've found is the biggest mistake that most practices make when they're looking?
I think what happens often is practice owners get tired of doing the bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
And they think, oh, if I could just get another doctor in here to do the bread and butter, I'll be okay. So they hire someone to come in. Maybe they start them part-time, maybe full-time, but they probably don't have the other aspects in place of they're actually producing at a good volume and they're doing bigger cases. And most of the time in those types of practices, they don't have the margins because they're not producing enough. And so they can't actually afford someone to come in and really make an impact. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, no, it does. That does answer my question. And it, it's probably tricky to even hire someone. Like there's got to be a lot of steps involved in how to go about hiring someone, especially if you want someone to stay long term.
totally.
So what are some steps that when you like, I'm sure you look at culture, if if they're a good fit for the practice, longevity, how long are they planning to stay with the practice? Do you have any ideas around how, like you say, it's that relationship thing. Do you just take them out to dinner and say, oh, great, I'm going to hire you? Or what's the plan here?
Well, that's what typically happens though, Jacquelyn. I'm sure, practice owners that like, we probably heard about like my nephew's cousin's friend who's graduating from dental school and needs a job. And so we had him come out on site. We went to dinner. Vibes were good. And so let's try it out. That happens all the time. Unfortunately, what's even worse than like a failed associateship is a failed associateship with someone you care about or you already have a pre-existing relationship.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes it is taken too lightly, I think, of like, yeah, like things seem to be good. Let's give it a shot. And unfortunately, I've talked to enough practice owners to hear the mentality of like, well, we'll just try them out. We'll go through maybe 2, 3, 4 of them and find the right one eventually. And I just think that's the wrong mentality because it's so incredibly expensive to hire the wrong doctor.
Yeah.
I could go through specific numbers, but we've calculated it to be well over $200,000 to $300,000 every time you hire the wrong doctor. And if you take 2 or 3 or 4 times to do it, that's like $600,000 to $800,000 of opportunity cost and part cost that you're just saying is okay. So I want to challenge and say there's a better way. Here's some suggestions that you could do. Okay. So if you're gonna, I have this fun story. I have a sister. Do you have any daughters, Jacquelyn? Do you have any kids?
I have 2 daughters.
Your daughter, she's got a dog. Yeah.
Yep.
So did your daughters, this is what my sister has done. She is in the dating world right now, desperately wants to find her husband. And so since a little girl, she created a list of characteristics in her knight in shining armor, right?
Yes.
It's the Disney effect, if you will, the Princess Disney effect of like, oh, I want this perfect knight in shining armor. He's tall, handsome, but also smart and funny, and he likes the same things, right? And so the funniest thing is my sister actually has this list written down on her phone. And as she's dating guys, like, we'll talk about it, okay? And she'll check off the boxes like, oh, he has this thing, but he's lacking this. And that's what I think practice owners should really do when it comes to like hiring, okay? So not just leave it up in the clouds and think, oh, like when I know, like when I meet them, like I think they'll kind of vibe. Take the time to actually write down a list and don't make them just clinical. Don't make them, oh, they've got to be proficient at endomolar or they've got to be proficient at implants or whatever it is, because that's obviously the natural things that come to our minds, but they bring so much more than just the clinical side. They bring their personality, they bring their values, they bring their communication style. All those things come with the human that is the new doctor. So yeah. I highly encourage practice owners to write down a list, 10, 20 characteristics, I don't care, but actually put pen to paper or on a document, whatever, and then talk to your team about it. Get their thoughts, get their feedback. what would they like to see and what would gel well with them, the culture of the practice and all those things, and begin with the end in mind. This Covey tells us, begin with the end in mind and actually think who's going to fit well here. And if you think that, you are like ahead of 90% of other practice owners because you actually have intentionality about who you want to bring on.
Yeah, for sure. I love that.
Yeah. And then once you've identified that, then it's clear, okay, how do we find this person? Where do we go to recruit them? If we know we're pretty busy, we need someone with maybe a little more experience, why would you talk to your alma mater? Why would you go to the dental school down the street? It doesn't make sense. And so you have clarity, and then you know which places to tap into to recruit from. But the mistake that happens all the time is it's just that vibe check from that point. Sure, we get some candidates and then we take them to dinner, we have them on site, and then we kind of move forward. I think there's a better way to do it that helps you find and hire people that actually match your culture. And it's not just a me thing. Like it's a proven process thing. And that's having an intentional vetting process. So like, if you're going to marry someone, do you go on like 2 dates or 1 date?
Nope. You're hanging out for quite a while just to
You got to spend time together. You have to have very clear intentional questions, understand how well they're going to work with you in your practice. And so I highly encourage practice owners to come up with a vetting process. How many interviews are they going to do? Who's going to do those interviews? What types of questions are we going to ask on those interviews? How are we going to score them? How are we going to know if they fit any of these boxes or these characteristics that we were looking for?
Right.
Do you do any sort of like personality test or a background check or a license check? Like, do you talk to references? Like, what's your process? If you can build a process, you'll have so much higher success of trying to actually understand if your cousin's nephew's friend who's graduating is the right person for the practice.
Yeah.
So I think there's so much value when you do that, and then you go back and you score it against that ideal avatar. There's so much clarity found when you try to actually follow an intentional process.
I love it. I think that sounds great. So obviously you go to more than one source to try to attract an associate, and then you kind of date them and take them through the process, the vetting process. And once you decide on someone, is there like an onboarding process that you guys recommend, or how does that work?
The first recommendation is to have one, right?
Yeah.
I think the key to onboarding is to first make sure that you have got a great associate agreement in place. I got sent this Reddit link the other day, Jacquelyn, where a practice owner had gone on Reddit and had said, I have been working with associates for years. We've never had contracts. It's always a handshake deal. And all of a sudden, these new kids are wanting contracts. And I was just shocked. I was absolutely shocked that anyone would engage in a professional relationship without a win-win agreement in place.
Yeah.
And it's mistakes like that there's so much liability in place as a practice owner if you don't have the proper paperwork in place. So like, even though it's annoying and even though it's tedious and maybe you don't know how to do it, people know how to do it. You need to have a great win-win contract in place. Okay. And compensation, all that stuff varies per market. You can research it, ask ChatGPT, like it'll coach you through it. But you have to have expectations written down so that everyone knows what's going on. Once you have that, you're off to a great start. Now, how do we build upon that established trust and expectations to make sure everyone is happy, especially for those first 3 to 6 months, and then getting to 12 months is a huge, huge feat. Okay. Yeah. So if you have the win-win agreement in place, then there's coming into the practice, do not make the mistake of just having them show up and expecting the office manager to know how to do it.
Right.
It happens.
You have to have systems in place. I mean, you have to have systems in place just for hiring, team members and administrators and things like that, let alone an entire associate who's going to come in and Yeah, I can totally see that it's a huge part of any practice. They need to have systems in place.
Yeah. So how are we going to schedule them? How do we talk about this new doctor? Who's responsible for training them on what and by when? I think that if you do much research into employee satisfaction and retention, the first 30 days are by far the most critical. And then it's the 90-day mark. If you can get to 90 days, people are happy, people feel supported, and they're getting busy and expectations are being met, you're like so much more likely to be able to retain them for the long haul. But too often we just leave those 90 days up to chance and to hope and like, oh, is this going to work out? And so creating some sort of intentional process, having some intentional conversations around, hey, new Dr. Smith, we'd love for you to focus on these specific things, whether it's like, hey, clinically, we'd love to get you to exactly where you want to go to build trust with the team and with patients. We're going to just start you with like the basics, crown and bridge and fillings these first 30, 60 days. I know you can do more, but to build trust with everyone, let's start with these. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we want you to see all new patients, or we want you to see these specific hygiene patients that we've prepped and already thought about. That level of intentionality, the lack of it can be costing you tons and tons of money. But at the same time, when you do it right, it shows so much faith and support. There used to be this methodology of like, let's just throw them in the deep end and hope it works out. Right. But the issue is the stream's moving too fast now. It's like a full-on raging river of speed and patience and technology. There's no way that you can expect someone to just jump in and somehow figure it out.
Yeah, I'm sure technology is a whole nother ballgame because there's so much to learn when it comes to dental technology and all of the pieces that go together with dental work and all of that. So I can totally see why that would be, I think that should be in your questions. Which technology do you know, right from the get-go, so you can makes it much easier for sure. So let's just say if there is someone out there that's struggling with an associate turnover and they're worried about hiring again or trying to figure out where to go from here. What words of encouragement would you offer them? Or do you have any suggestions for them? Maybe they could work with your organization to help them figure that out.
First of all, I hope anybody that listens to this realizes there is a better way and it is possible. Like, you don't even have to work with our team, but if you just put a little bit of effort into it, you can see so much more success. And the stuff we've talked about doesn't just apply to associates. It's all team members. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think one role that is, as a business owner, as a practice owner, one of the number one things that you do is to attract top talent. Because that top talent, whether they're the best assistant in town or the best hygienist, or the best front desk or whoever, the more A players you attract, the better you perform overall. Okay. And these principles that we talked about, creating that ideal avatar, recruiting them from the right places, vetting them, and all that stuff can be applied across the board. And so there are way better ways to hire than just off gut feel. And if you follow them, you're going to set yourself up for so much more success. If that sounds overwhelming and you feel like there's no way I have the time managing all the patient load, I'm already dealing with all the other things, and I love some coaching or some expert help, that's obviously where we can enter in and out. And we'd love to be able to do that.
I love it. So tell us a little bit more about Dentist Partner Pros and how people can learn more about what you have to offer in your organization.
Yeah. So if people have any interest in reaching us, they can just go to our website, dentistpartnerpros.com, and you can learn all about our solutions there. You can schedule a call directly on my calendar on the website. So if you want to schedule a free discovery call, love to meet you and have a quick call. We can run through things. If you want to know if your practice is ready, we'll link, I think in the show notes, Jacquelyn, a link to the associate readiness quiz, which is kind of those pillars that we talked about earlier. It's a free quiz that we created to help you kind of gain clarity. It's not perfect by any means, but it's a great starting point to just get your brain thinking, okay, is this something I should even start to consider? If that happens to be you and you'd love some help, please reach out to us either on our website. You can email me at Bryton, Bryton, at dentistpartnerpros.com, and we can set up a time to meet. But yeah, we'd love to help. We help people through our associate hiring system, guarantee they hire the right fit. So
I love it. I love it. So if you are, to all of our listeners, if you are in the process of hiring or even just thinking about it, I hope this conversation gives you the confidence and clarity that you've been needing to kind of know that it is possible to build a dream team, even though hopefully you can just take the right approach by reaching out to Bryton over at Dentist Partner Pros. Thank you to our sponsor, eAssist Dental Solutions. eAssist is the leading dental billing company. If you're looking to strengthen your practice's revenue cycle and get paid for the work that you do, and just, the whole goal is to collect 100% of that's rightfully owed to you, and to create a peace of mind within your team, which I think if you reach out to Bryton, he'll help you create peace of mind in your team as well. So I feel like our products go hand in hand. Is there anything additional you'd like to add, Bryton, before we wrap it up today?
no, I just want to thank you to eAssist. I mean, we have a number of clients that use eAssist, and they are over the moon happy that they actually get paid for what they produce. So yeah, I just can't thank you guys enough. You're doing a lot of good in the marketplace. And yeah, if anybody has any desire to receive some help from some experts that do this all day, every day, of helping people hire and retain and onboard associates, please do not hesitate to reach out. We'd love to see if we can help.
I love it. Thank you, Bryton. I really appreciate you being here. So until next time, keep growing, keep serving, and remember the right people can change everything. And I think Bryton would attest to that for sure. Take care.
The purpose of this podcast is to interview the consultants within our eAssist Consultant Network. This podcast is for informational purposes only. For more details, please visit the homepage of this podcast platform at dentalbilling.com. Thanks for listening.